Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Kari.HQ here. I got a very exciting video for you guys today. I get to share with you something I'm very passionate about and something that ended up becoming one of my true loves here in Colombia. So, y'all are going to want to stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm definitely going to be showing you some very cool footage live from the streets of Medellin, and I mean the ghetto, the worst part of Medellin, or at least what people consider to be one of the worst parts of Medellin, just to show you some of what I'm talking about today. So, what is today's video about, you might be asking? So, it's about my love story with motorcycles, motos, whatever you want to call them. Here in Colombia, they would call them motos. So, I want to jump right into this, guys, and start off with telling you guys a little bit about how my moto journey started, okay? So when I first came to Colombia, I hardly noticed the motos and the associated culture with motos and everything. It was just something that, you would see motos out there, but I wasn't someone that rode motorcycles in the United States before I moved here. And over time, I slowly began to admire the culture in Medellin, and I think my first interest was in the classic motos, like the famous DT line from Yamaha, which is iconic here in Colombia. You'll see them all over the place, and oftentimes they've been restored beautifully, right? And this bike, I can remember thinking, was so beautiful, guys. And the way they dressed them up here in Medellin, it continued to catch my eye all the time. Now, after the pandemic, when I began going outside again, because we was locked down for a little bit out here in Medellin, I knew that I needed a better form of transportation. Since I never driven a moto in my life, that wasn't really the first thing I thought of. But yeah, I took public transportation. I took many Ubers, many taxis and all that. And really what was the catalyst for me to finally hop on a motorcycle was the Medellin Metro. I felt like every time I got off the Medellin Metro, I had a cough or I was sick, or, it was just so many people crammed into a small little car, sharing fluids, sharing, air and everything. And I just one day was like, I can't do this anymore, man. The Medellin Metro is great. It can get you from 𝐥𝐤𝐤 all the way to 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐵, and, not that much time is a great thing. But for me, I just did not enjoy it. And first you got to get to the metro, and then you got to ride, and then, there's usually no seats and everything. So the Medellin Metro really motivated me to finally take that leap and get a motorcycle. So while living in 𝐥𝐤𝐤, that's when I would have to take the metro all the time. That's also where I decided I would learn how to ride motorcycles, which was a great challenge for me, guys. It's a new skill. It's kind of like learning a language. It's just something else that you can add to your repertoire. And at that point, I had never driven a motorcycle in my life. I've ridden on the back of one like once or twice, but I never had driven a motorcycle at this point. And this would have been about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Now, my only saving grace was that I had driven and loved to drive manual transmission cars my whole life. Actually, my first car was a manual transmission. And come to find out, when it comes to motos, yeah, they have automatic motos, but I wasn't interested in scooters, anything like that. A real motorcycle is pretty much the same setup as a manual transmission car. And you will have to change gears. There's a clutch, a throttle, and all that type of stuff. So the whole idea of driving a vehicle in that way where you have to shift gears was very familiar to me, although everything is in a different position on a motorcycle. You got your clutch up here, you got your gear shifter down by your left foot, and you got brakes on the right, one on the right hand and another on the right foot. So, I had to really gain that muscle memory of knowing where to manipulate the vehicle and different places using different parts of my body to do so. So that was the real challenge. Then you have to learn how to turn on a motorcycle, because you don't turn the handlebars on a motorcycle to turn. You lean and all that type of stuff. So finding my balance and all that, those were the things that I had to learn. But when it comes to the motor part of it, I pretty much understood that, which was great. Now, once I figured this out, I found the cheapest school in my area and begun taking classes to get my license here in Colombia. That school ended up to be 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐿 in 𝐦𝐨𝐬. That's where I took all my motorcycle courses, got my certification, and got my license. After that, the fun part began. I had to find my first motorcycle, guys. And without looking too much, I stumbled into Motowork and met a fine gentleman named Carlos. And Carlos happened to have spent time in Texas living there for a while, and his English was superb. Like, you wouldn't even know he was, living in Colombia or Colombian, right? Because his English was just fluid. And he came up to me. I was looking at the bikes. I didn't know really much about the bikes, but I was just looking, right? He explained to me, what each bike's purpose is, so to speak. And then Carlos recommended my current bike that I have right now, which was the XTZ250. I went to YouTube from there and started comparing the bikes and learning as much as I could, looking at the other options here in Colombia. And yeah, there's bikes with a lot more power and stuff like that. But one thing that I kept in mind when I was doing my search for a bike, I didn't want anything too powerful. I didn't want to be able to kill myself going 150 miles an hour or anything like that. So I knew I wanted something mild, right? I didn't want the biggest, most powerful bike because I just didn't have the experience for it. And one of the most important things about riding motorcycles is knowing your limitations, guys. Is a very important piece of it all. And from there, I went ahead and bought the bike. And you guys have been a part of that. You could go through my channel and you'll see the videos of me buying and picking up my first motorcycle at Motowork here in Medellin on Calle Las Vegas. You'll also see my first 10,000 kilometer review on my bike. And then I also have a breakdown video of my bike, just explaining, all the specifications of the bike and everything. I also have some trips that I've went on my bike from Medellin to Cali or around Pereira and Valle de Cocora. So I highly recommend that you guys go check all that out if you're interested in motos and if you like to see the moto culture here in Medellin, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Right now, I just want to share my personal love story and how I kind of fell in love with motorcycles with you. So that's what the beginning of this video is about, and we've kind of done that there. And now I want to mention a few other things. So it's important to keep in mind, guys, when riding motos, it doesn't come without danger, right? So let's talk about that. There's a lot of different dangers when it comes to riding motorcycles, especially here in Colombia. First off, there's the danger of having a wreck on a motorcycle, and you'll be much more exposed to injury, let's say, than in a car, because you just don't have any protection, right? You're kind of out there on the bike with nothing. But there are things that you can buy to help with that, right? So there's protective gear. There's jackets that have padding on your most important areas, right? Like your elbows, your shoulders. You can buy rib guards, chest guards, and they even have some jackets nowadays that have airbags in them. So they can sense an impact and then they will inflate like a padding for you, kind of like an airbag in a car would. So those are all things, including gloves, right? Helmet, obviously. They have pants that have different, inserts for your knees and different parts, right? Or your tailbone. They also have boots that are very protective, right? So you can pretty much wear a body armor suit on a motorcycle nowadays and still look cool, because a lot of the clothing manufacturers, they also pay attention to style and they make really good products that look good as well as protect you really well. So that's a very important thing to consider when you're dealing with a motorcycle is, hey, it's dangerous, man. It is dangerous. And, it's not always up to you if you're going to have a crash. Sometimes somebody else could do something stupid and cause you to crash, right? So We all are taking a risk by riding motorcycles. Let's just be honest about that. Now, the second major dangerous piece of riding motorcycles, especially here in Colombia, is that the insecurity that exists in Colombia, that means the possibility of being robbed or kidnapped and things like that. So you'll need to be very diligent and careful when planning trips throughout Colombia, especially in the rural areas. You need to listen to the locals. You need to use social media. You need to use the news outlets to stay updated on the places that you're going on your motorcycle. Now, if you're primarily in the city, you probably should still pay attention to what type of barrio you're in, because a lot of bikes get stolen here in Colombia and in Medellin. So you don't want to just park your bike anywhere, especially without a GPS system in your bike or without a alarm system on your bike, which I have both on my bike. So that's another kind of dangerous part about owning a motorcycle. Now, where do you get started if you're someone that's interested in getting a motorcycle here in Colombia, right? The first thing you want to do is get a license and learn how to drive. That's, the first thing you got to do. And then you got to find the right bike for you and the type of riding that you're going to be doing, right? From there, you want to get your insurance, and then you can go ahead and start planning trips and having fun, guys. Now, I promised you that we would talk a little bit about the culture, the moto culture here in Colombia, because honestly, that's what roped me in. It was the culture. I wasn't impressed with the motorcycle culture in the United States necessarily. It's a lot more speed. A lot of people like the crotch rockets and stuff like that. It pretty much dominates the culture in America. You also have the Harley type of guys that like the cruise and the old man, the biker gangs and all that stuff. There's not a big focus on adventure riding in the United States, although I bet you there's way more people doing it in the United States. It's just not what dominates the culture per se. There's probably more adventure riders in the United States than Colombia just because the population is a lot bigger. But what I'm saying is it's just not as dominant in the culture aspect, right? So let's talk about the moto culture here in Colombia. I doubt that there's any country that loves their motorcycles more than Colombia. Perhaps the only one that is competition in that area is Brazil, because I know they get down in Brazil. I ain't gonna hold you. Anyway, for most Colombians, motos are a part of their life from the day they are born. They probably have some kids that were driven home as newborn from the hospital on a motorcycle. Imagine that. Many of them grow up riding motorcycles as well, and they do it well before they even reach the legal age to ride a motorcycle. You'll see it all the time if you come out here in Medellin and go around to the popular barrios. You'll see kids that look 12, 13, riding motorcycles, no helmet, nothing, right? And they know what they're doing. They also love to modify and restore motos here in Medellin, Colombia, and all across Colombia. So you can find just about any part or upgrade for any bike in this country. And the labor to have things installed is often very cheap and affordable here, which is awesome for any moto lover. Within the moto culture, there are also a few different subcultures that dominate in Colombia. For example, there are the stunt riders who can't keep their front wheel on the ground. I've been fortunate enough to experience many of what we may call sideshows or stunt meetups here in Medellin. They, however, have a different name for it, and they would call it piques. Piques really just means stunts. So let me show you a look inside of one of these events that I went to just this past week. It was in Barrio Antioquia, and it was a big meetup. And let me tell you a little bit about the kind of history with these meetups. A lot of times they were held in Las Palmas, right? Up at the Mirador on Avenida Las Palmas that goes up to Rio Negro and all that. However, the cops have really started to crack down on those. And it's forced those groups to find new ways to still have their meetups. And so a lot of times they'll post on Instagram or social media where they're going to have the meetups. That way it's not always easy to find them. and the cops are not always prepared to go set up and haggle people about it. So what happened in Las Palmas is the cops started to send a whole bunch of police force up there to stop and check these bikers and a lot of them don't even have the proper paperwork or registration on their bike, so they were impounding their bikes and things like that. So that's why the meetups on Thursdays that used to happen in Las Palmas that I've shown on my channel as well are not as popping as they used to be. Some of them still do pop off, but just wanted to put that out there.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy Kari.HQ live in Barrio Antioquia right now. It's kind of loud right now. They doing their wheelies and everything right now. Just pulled up. Check it out. Only in Medellin on this channel. Like, comment, subscribe right now. Drop a comment for your boy. Let's go.
All right, so now you saw a little bit of footage inside of those events, man. It's crazy. All the people, all you got women riding bikes, you got kids riding bikes, doing stunts, stuff that I can't even do. And it's just awesome, man. I think those experiences really stand out to me, and it shows how much they love the bikes out here. Now, you have a few different other groups as well. For example, you have the adventure riders, right? The adventure riders, they oftentimes like to hug the beautiful curves of Colombia, and I don't mean the ladies, and they do it on long to medium distance rides around the country. That really describes me, I think. I think I'm an adventure rider. For this type of riding, most people will elect for an adventure bike. It just makes sense. And that style of moto is one which would allow you to venture off the beaten path to some tough terrain, right? They call them trochas. That means like muddy roads in Colombia. And that's the type of bike I have. My 𝐥𝐤𝐬𝐷 250 has a very high ground clearance. It's got semi-knobby tires, which I'll be changing to make more aggressive for off-road very soon here. But yeah, that bike is awesome for pretty much doing everything in Colombia. And there's not a lot of drawbacks when it comes to driving in the city on that bike. It still does most of what a street bike would do. So my bike, I love it. And it's an adventure bike at heart, or what they would call here a double propósito. And it's awesome for my style of riding. You also have the daily commuters, right? Who mainly drive around the city on the daily basis, and they might venture out from time to time outside the city, but for the most part, they're here in the city. And for this style of riding, you don't really need a special bike. You just need a road style bike, which are the most popular bikes here, really. You won't need the high ground clearance, for example, or things like that when you're staying on roads, like actual roads. So that's probably what's the most sold type of bike here in Colombia, because a lot of people here use it for utility. It's not just something to have fun with, although that's kind of how I look at it. Although I'm also a commuter. When I have to go places, I hop on my bike. But to me, I love to go venture out on my motorcycle and go see new places and explore. That in general describes most of the riders here in Colombia, right? And I think there's a mix of all three of those too. There can be a mix. Like some people are commuters, but they like to do adventure and they like to do stunts. You know, you could be a mix of all of that, right? But I think those are the major buckets there. And all in all, man, I just want to share with you guys my love story about motorcycles. I want my audience to get to hear this story, because to me, it really changed my life. I didn't expect this to be the case. I didn't expect to be riding motorcycles when I moved to Colombia, but it just happened. And I also want new people to come to my channel that are interested in motorcycles and stuff, because I do put out really good content when it comes to motorcycles and adventure riding. And anyone that shares a common interest with me is welcome here on my channel, man. With that, I wish everyone out there safe riding, and don't forget to look out for us motos on the road. If you're someone driving a different type of vehicle, car, truck, whatever, make sure you look out for us moto drivers on the road, and safe riding to all you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Shoot me a DM on Instagram if you want to link up and go for a ride. And thank you guys for watching. It's your boy Kari 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐿. I'm out. Vroom, vroom.